Welcome to Write Once, Deploy Everywhere, how this is becoming a reality in automotive space for automotive applications.
Welcome.
Starting with who we are.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniele. I'm a software engineer freelancing with Snap Automotive.
Nice to meet you, everyone. I'm Gabriel. I work at Forvia. So at Forvia, we do many things. We are an automotive supplier, but we do Android automotive integration. We also provide a white label apps market for OEMs. And we also build third-party applications.
And my name is Melina. I work at BMW in the engineering department, being the product owner for the third-party apps in our app store. So basically the person who has the pleasure to really bring all of the applications we have out there to automotive and make sure that they're working. To give an overview, what is happening around the automotive app ecosystem, which is a term we hear so often nowadays. Basically, if you follow the news, you see that white label app stores are all around automotive. Unfortunately, not only all around automotive, also all around droidcon. So if you check it out, you will see 3 cars out there, one Audi car, one BMW, one Mercedes car, all equipped with an automotive app store in there. So we really see that a lot is happening there, and that basically what was a theory a few years ago that you can really bring Android applications to automotive is becoming to reality. But let me take you on a time travel a few years back. BMW was looking at the operating system and decided, okay, we had a Linux-based operating system and we're moving to an ASP-based operating system. And at some point, someone had a really, really innovative idea and was like, ASP-based operating system, we just need to bring an Android app store and all of the applications that are out there for mobile will work in the car, right? What could go wrong? Let me spoiler you. A lot can go wrong. So if you check out the cars and demo the cars out there, you will see that we not yet have all of the thousands and hundreds of thousands applications in the car that we promised. So feel free to give it a look. If you find bugs in a BMW, I'm the girl to talk to. And basically, we were testing and we're seeing, okay, we had quite some hurdles bringing these Android applications to automotive. On one hand, of course, looking at the topic of driver distraction, which is crucial, that for apps that should run while driving, you need to follow specific driver distraction guidelines. But we also realized and saw, okay, we really have Google dependencies within these apps, so it's not like bringing the Android tablet app just to automotive and have it running there. So we basically had to go back to our management and tell them, hey, we promised you all of these apps, but we can't make that happen, which is one of the terms that automotive management likes to hear as much as hearing that there's a production stop. So we had to figure something out and we had to change perspective. Basically, one of the customer groups that BMW knows really, really well are the customers who are in the end buying the cars. We know what they want with the cars. We know that they want to have all of the fresh content in the car. But this is not working if you're saying, okay, back then on Linux, we developed these applications on our own, which is costing quite a lot of money, which takes maintenance, which takes also a lot of time. So we had to shift perspective in a way to say, okay, we really want to build a joint ecosystem there. And that means for us as BMW to understand one of the big customer groups next to the customers buying the car are indeed the app developers. We need to talk and attract the developers in order to really get the fresh content in there. And when we spoke to the developers, basically the feedback was like the fleet size of BMW, looking at mobile, we have so many devices there. The volume of BMW, being quite honest, is nearly irrelevant. If you want to test for automotive, there are basically no capabilities of doing so. If we want to really foster innovation for automotive, not all of the interfaces are there. So we stood there and were like, okay, we need to reconsider. So basically, what did we do so far? If we look at the left side, that is what all of the OEMs did individually, saying, okay, we have the requirements as OEMs that we're giving individually to the app developers, bringing the app developers in a situation where really a developer need to develop and maintain an app version specifically for one OEM. And if you go to an app developer and tell them, hey, basically the monetization options on automotive are still limited, so is the volume, but we still want you to develop something specifically for BMW without payment for it, then there are usually two reactions. Either they laugh at you or they leave the call, which, to be honest, is completely fair game. So in order to grow the ecosystem, we had to rethink this approach and move from the traditional OEM approach to a platform ecosystem approach. What does that mean? On one hand, we have a store provider in the middle who is basically the central platform for the developers regarding testing and contracting, but also the central point where we're saying, okay, we need to align the requirements that we have as OEMs. We need to come to the point that developers in the end really only have one app version that they can distribute to all of the different OEMs, which, to be honest, is hard between the OEMs to align, especially from a compliance perspective. So that is where Covisa comes into play, where Gabriel will tell you a little bit more later on what we're doing there and how we really enable with Covisa this platform ecosystem approach. So what are our goals? Why are we saying, okay, standardization for us is so important? On one hand, we want to enable innovation in rich experiences, because for us, it's not only about saying we have an application in mobile and we're bringing that to automotive. We want to rethink the concept. The cool ideas that are out there are not within the OEMs. These cool ideas are within the app developer companies. And we need to enable them in a way that they can bring this innovation to automotive. That means we need a sufficient fleet size, which can only be enabled across OEMs if we add up the volumes that the different OEMs are having. That means we need to have frictionless onboarding and testing capabilities for them. At the moment, it's still OEM-specific testing. We want to come to a point that we, at a certain point, have a cross-OEM emulator, but also to enable app developers to really go out there and test into all of the different vehicles of the OEMs. And we really want to build a cross-OEM app ecosystem where we're saying, okay, an app developer is in a space that are saying they see automotive as relevant and they build an innovative application, then they also need to have the level of trust that in the end, this indeed will end up in the car of the different OEMs. And most of all, we want to avoid fragmentation between the OEMs, and that only works if we build up and really work together to make this happening for the app developers. And that is exactly what we're doing within Covisa. Gabriel.
Thank you very much, Melina, for this intro. So now you might be asking yourself, what is Covisa? So Covisa stands for Connected Vehicle System Alliance. And Covisa is actually a group of companies that are working together on the connected vehicle experience. So we work on what are the challenges and what are the opportunities that connectivity and software-defined vehicle bring and how to tackle them. In Covisa, there are more than 80 companies that are members. Some of them are OEMs, car manufacturers. Some of them are automotive suppliers, tier ones. Some of them are software companies, some of them are hardware companies, and we all work together. And what is great in Covisa is actually that you don't need to be a member to participate in Covisa. So you can join one of the many groups of Covisa, even if you're not a member. So we are the group presented on the top left about reducing fragmentation in automotive AOSP, but we have many other groups, as you can see. One that is worth mentioning here is the payment groups. So basically, payment is a big thing in Android Automotive and Automotive AOSP. It brings a lot of opportunity for app developers to monetize, for example. And so we are working closely with this group, and we're actually considering making it a subgroup of our Automotive AOSP group. So who is part of our group? So in our group, we try to have people that are representing the different stakeholders of our ecosystem, of the ecosystem that we are trying to build. So of course, we have OEMs. Only some of the members are mentioned on this slide because we didn't know what could be displayed and who could not be displayed. But we have, of course, OEMs in the group. We have app developers. And we would like to have more app developers, to be very honest, but some of them are mentioned here. So Zoom committed to implement one of the features that we are going to deliver, which is push notification in the car. We have 3SS, with an app developer for entertainment applications. And we have Mavi.io that is helping us on building proof of concept and challenging the technical concept that we are working on. Of course, we have white label app store providers such as Forestia, Aptoid, and Arman Ignite. And we have automotive suppliers and many other companies. So with these members, so today we have more than 30 different companies that are joining the call. So with these members, we are working on work streams, and some of them are presented here, some of them are not presented here, so we have many more actually, but there is the push notification track, so we are bringing push notification to the automotive, and I will make a quick deep dive on this topic after this slide. We have the entertainment track, which is about reducing access barriers for video apps in the automotive by standardizing APIs and the challenge that they can face. So for example, there are already some video streaming applications that are available in the car, but we want to have more of them. For example, Netflix. And these applications, they have specific challenges, such as digital rights management, or being able to say in which country the user is. Because if you're using a video streaming website, for example, you don't have the same content in one country or in another country. So for that, they are using some specific tools in the mobile world that does not work out of the box, or that needs some adaptation in the automotive context, and we are working with them on solving these challenges. And finally, the Covesa SDK. The Covesa SDK is an SDK that we would like third-party application developers to implement, and that will give them access to standardized APIs for the automotive ecosystem and automotive-specific features. So for all of the work streams, what we deliver is actually open source codes, reference implementations, and builds. So for example, for the SDKs, for push notification or for the Covesa SDK, we would like, of course, to publish our SDKs on Maven. So now we are going to make a deep dive on the push notifications. I don't think I need to explain to this audience what a push notification is, but what I can say is that it's a missing part in automotive. It's not available in automotive AOSP, and it's not available in AAOS or the gas system yet. But still, push notification is a must-have feature for app developers. It's something that you get out of the box almost in the mobile world. And you need that to create retention. So it's a way to trigger messages about your application on the device. So for retention, but it's also a needed functional feature for communication apps. So for example, if you have a messaging app or a calling app, you need to be able to wake up the app in background to inform the user that, okay, you've received a message or you are receiving a call. So for that, normally you use push notification, but because you don't have that, the strategies that you could use today, if you don't have push notification, is actually to create an open connection between your application and your server, connection that is always open, that could be killed anytime by the system. And actually, it's not very efficient in terms of resources. We can say that it's a waste of resources in terms of memory and energy, for example. So it's not the right solution. So that's why we want to bring push notification to the automotive. So on this slide on the right, you have like a typical and simplified push notification architecture. And that consists of 4 bricks. The bricks on the right, they belong to the application developer. And the bricks on the left, they will be mostly implemented by the OEM. So generally, when you want to send a notification to your app, you use your app server and you send a data message to a push server. So in the mobile world, typically it's FCM or Apple Push Notification Service, APNS. This push server sends the data as a push notification to a distributor app. A distributor app is an app that is installed once per device, that receives the push notification and then that dispatches them to the appropriate apps on the system. And for that, typically, normally you have an SDK that you integrate in your third-party application to receive the data from push notifications. So it works in this direction, but you also need it to work in the other direction to actually subscribe your app to push notification. And that's what we are bringing. So we want to give to the developers the client SDK that they will embed in their application. We want to deliver reference implementation for the distributor app, and we want to deliver reference implementation for the push server. And actually, we identified an open source project that is called Unified Push that is doing some of this. And we decided that we would base our implementation on their solution. So this is the output of meetings where we challenged the specifications of what we needed and also of what Unified Push was providing. And we found that there were some features that were missing that we would want to add to Unified Push. So they are listed on this slide. Some of them are functional features, some of them are about safety. We also, so we decided to build on top of Unified Push, so we want to add these features. And of course, it's going to be open source, and we decided to choose the Apache license because it's the most open license. It's also the one that was supported by the open source community, by OEMs, and by the different companies that were involved in this group. So basically then, as I said, we are going to provide like these 3 bricks. What is great is that the push server actually it will be implemented by the OEMs. They can use the reference implementation directly, or they can build their own push server, but that doesn't change anything in terms of integration for the third-party application developer. Because when you register to receive push notification, you actually receive an endpoint from the push server, and so as an app server, you just need to use this endpoint, and you don't need to know if it's BMW, Mercedes, or whatever OEM. In terms of status, we are starting the coding of this solution. We have already done some proof of concept implementation, and it's actually the Unified Push community itself that will develop this solution on top of their open source project. So it will be hosted also on their GitHub. And we are very happy to have this first implementation in the Covesa group. So I give the floor now to Melina for how we work concretely in terms of organization in the group.
To give you an overview, if you want to get involved within Covesa, we have a weekly call which is taking place every Monday, 5 till 6 p.m. CEST, and it's open for everyone, even for non-members. That's why we chose Covesa. You do not need to pay a membership fee there to see what is going on and give the input there, which is really our commitment. We are listening and we're learning, but to have these learnings as App Store providers, as Tier 1s, as OEMs, we really need to have the input from the app developers. So feel free to join us there. Next to the weekly calls, which is, let's say, the generic environment where we collect feedback, define joint priorities, and share the progress, we have technical tracks. They take place either bi-weekly or monthly, where we're saying, okay, this is really a deep dive topic that the group needs to focus on. At the moment, there is one ongoing for the entertainment topics that Gabriel already mentioned earlier, which is monthly, Thursday, 5 till 6 p.m. Everything can be found in the Covesa calendar. We have a QR code later, don't worry. And besides that, we're also having workshops like we did for push notifications, for example, because we fully understand not everyone can send every time all of the technical folks from different companies. And that's why we're saying, okay, we make this dedicated workshops where really everyone can send the experts to have, let's say, a faster level of progress there. And of course, the dates are aligned in the weekly calls that everyone can join. And besides that, what I want to show you about the group, because I know hearing OEMs working together, really jointly aligning, making it even easier for the developers, sounds like a stretch. I know that this has been tried a lot of times beforehand and not always went smoothly, but we have the first successes there. We released the Covesa ASP SDK, where Daniele will give an overview in a minute what is happening there and how you can contribute to. we were able to align between the different companies and OEMs on unified push as an open source solution. We could define joint requirements and specifications, how this extension is looking like. And we even with Zoom have one of the big app providers who said, okay, what you did there makes sense because that is important to us to really do the fact check. Are we moving in the right direction? Is what we're doing really meeting the needs of the app developers? And there we urgently need the feedback and need companies where we can reflect our ideas if we're moving with the right priorities and with the right technical solutions. And even secured funding now to start working on the reference implementation and the specs for unified push, which shows how serious we are. We are OEMs, tier ones, and app store providers, not only coming together and working together, but really taking money, working on these projects and saying, okay, we're willing as parts of the industry to fund solutions that we then put open source for everyone to really get this going. So that is really a topic that is close to our heart, where we say, okay, we see the first successes. Yes, it's still a long way to go, but we really see that we're moving in the right direction there. With that being said, showing one of the success points, the Covisa AOSP SDK.
Cool. Thank you, Melina. So, as mentioned before, the Covisa SDK aims to be a collection of libraries that basically provide an easy way for third-party app developers to access automotive features in an agnostic way, so that they don't have to worry about which model or which OEM device they are running on. The main components are then, of course, one component, one service that is running on the final car, the device, let's call it like this, made by an OEM, a library that is going to be implemented in third-party applications, and some glue to connect them together. Talking about Android, we decided to use ADL, which is a standard for inter-process communication definition in Android. And this allows us to basically create this connection and define the APIs that the third-party developers are going to be able to use to interact with OEM services. Then, on top of that, we also created some client API, which I'm going to show you later what's the main reason for this, but let's put it like this. It's creating a bit more, it's making the life of third-party developers easier, and so hopefully is also going to increase the interest in implementing this SDK. For today's example, I'm going to show you a proof of concept for a light service. Let's imagine it as a service that can be implemented by OEMs and allows third-party apps to control internal lights of a car. So with this one, third-party client apps, they can, for example, change colors, brightness, of course, turn on or off some lights, choose which zone of the car, if supported, can be light. So, for example, just the passenger side, just the rear side, or just the driver one. Of course, they need to get updates about the current status of lights because, yeah, we want to know if the operation was successful, but also remember we are talking a bit with hardware, so there might be some physical controls that can change the status of these lights. So the app needs to be notified when this happens, so that the UI can be refreshed. And talking about future updates, of course, the API definition might evolve, so it's good also to consider the current version of the installed service so that the app can know, okay, some APIs are available or not, or they are behaving in different ways. So, being an SDK for third-party apps, app developers were the first, let's say, clients for this SDK. So, with that in mind, what we are providing are, of course, the ADL definition, which defines what are the available interfaces and functions that can be called. We are going to have a look in a minute. The library that wraps everything, which at the moment is just an AAR file, but soon it will be published on a Maven repository. Some samples and code, which are going to be open, well, they are already open source in a repository, which I will share the link in a second. Some documentation, but one of the most important things is that not everybody has a car available for testing. So what we are also providing is a mock implementation of the service side of Think that app developers can use to test their SDK implementation. So this mock service is going to work on any emulator or real device if you want, but it doesn't need to be on an automotive device or an automotive emulator. It's a service that is going to run on any emulator with a given, of course, a minimum SDK requirement, but can be used to test the app in a very quick and easy way. It will just print some logs to make sure that the received values, the received input from the client are being correct, and they are going to update any listener that listen to those updates. Going a bit into the technical side of things, but I'll be brief, I swear. The ADL definition is pretty simple. As you can see, it's just, there are just a couple of methods, one to get the version, one to set the internal light for a given zone, and two for register and unregistered listeners so that we can receive updates. We decided to not add a method to poll the current state of lights because we wanted to give an opinionated way for developers to create reactive interfaces like it is the standard at the moment. So this works pretty well with the modern UI frameworks like Compose, for example, so that UIs can be automatically updated when new states, when new light status in this case are emitted. And so we don't want third-party app developers to constantly ping the OEM service to get a new state. We are going to notify them. ADL works pretty well to make communications between clients and service, but the setup might be a bit convoluted, let's put it like this. It requires a lot of boilerplate, so you need to maintain a connection, react when the connection is lost, implement binders, register and unregister listeners. That's the reason why I added in the previous slide that other element of the SDK, which is a wrapper around all the ADL boilerplate, which creates a way nicer as the developer interface. So the final API that a third-party app developer can use is just, as you can see, it's using modern concepts like Kotlin flows, suspend functions, and with just 3 methods, a third-party app developer can integrate this SDK and have a reactive UI receiving inputs and updating status of those lights, as for this example. And this is the idea that we are going to follow for also other libraries that we are going to add to the SDK. From the other point of view, for OEMs, we again share the same kind of libraries. Again, they're going to be published in Maven soon. We have samples in our repository. And you can see it from the opposite point of view. While the mock service was used by third-party app developers to validate their implementation, now the sample that was used for the client developers can be used by car manufacturers to test their service implementation. Service that, is a simple sample for a traditional Android service. So there is the binder that needs to be implemented, and it needs to follow the implementation of the ADL definition. There are just a few methods which, in the sample, they are just logging and showing a toast, but there it's pretty simple to extend it for an OEM to interact with physical hardware. Another advantage of ADL is that it doesn't force OEMs to use Java or Kotlin to implement their service. They can also go native or use other languages that are supported and are compatible with ADL. So this gives quite a lot of freedom, and it gives an opinionated sample, but it still leaves some freedom to OEMs on how to implement those services. As I mentioned, everything in the SDK is, it's still a work in progress, but it's already available as an open source GitHub repository. And We are also started to accept like new discussions and of course issues and pull requests. So everybody is more than welcome to join. If you have any ideas or you want to discuss some of the implementation details, that's the right place where to go. Okay.
So, how to get involved? Basically, feel free to, of course, contact us. Within Covisa, we have 3 chairs. One is Gabriel from Forvia. One excused himself because it's 4th of July in US. That is Gabriel from GM. And myself, regarding the Covisa SDK, Snap and Daniele is the guy to talk to. Feel free to scan the QR code, one for our weekly call, one for general information about what we're doing. And of course, feedback is also welcome. We created a small Google Docs form just to give us feedback. Are we moving in the right direction? What should we still consider? If you take one thing out of this talk, I would say it's we want to create trust that automotive is growing and that really this ecosystem is being developed. We want to show our commitment that if there is an innovative idea there, we will release these apps from a technical standpoint and also move in a direction that our platforms are capable of really supporting these ideas. And if you're saying, okay, you still have that little doubt left in you that you can really develop an app once and deploy it everywhere, which is where we started with today's discussion, I highly invite you to check out the different OEM cars that are out there and really seeing that there are already applications in there, which are the same apps distributed via app stores into the cars of the OEMs and really running cross brands and cross OEMs. So that would be it. With that being said, I would do a big shout out to Chris Simmons. Allow me that for a minute, who is the organizer of the AOSP and AOS meetups, the guy with the hand up there, who is having a booth and made it happen that we're here today. Without Chris, we would not be here. We could not tell you about Covisa, and he also invited Covisa already to one of his meetups to really discuss and open up the connection between the OEMs, the app stores, and the app developers to really give the feeling, okay, we are listening and we want to listen, we want to collect the feedback there. He's having a booth 40 next to the Mario Kart machine, so feel free to step by after you did the demos in the different vehicles. And now we would open the room for questions if there are, otherwise also happy to chat later.